You were born and raised in Connecticut until what year?
I lived in Connecticut until I was ready for New York. I was born in 1921, and went to New York in 1944. And in the meantime, I had wonderful experiences with doing little shows for the other kids and sharing with them whatever I had to offer. And we went onto our self-made stage and performed for each other down into cellars. They sat on the cellar steps and paid a penny for a show. And then other little things happened. And when I went to regular school, I began to be noticed. And before I knew it, I was being invited to sing in different places, and very fortunately was given the opportunity to audition for a scholarship. And I went to Junior School of Music for 4 years of my high school life, and then they arranged for me to audition for a scholarship, and I won the scholarship, and that's how I stayed in Hartford for 4 years at the Junior Hart School of Music. And then they took me to New York, and my career began.
Hope, can you tell me a little bit about the teacher who discovered your talent?
Yes, her name was Adelina Patsy Fulton, and that was 9th grade in junior high, Jefferson Junior High. And she was going up and down the aisles of the choral group and listening to the different voices, and she stopped at my desk, and at the end of the rehearsal she just had decided to make me the soloist for this particular piece that we did. And after the performance, which was some rehearsals later, someone from the Junior Hadassah, Young Women's Junior Hadassah, came to ask me to do a solo for her organization. And I didn't know any thing in Yiddish, so she had the rabbi teach me Eli Eli in Yiddish, and my first out of English language song. And the result of that was that I was given the opportunity to audition for the Junior Hart School of Music, which was not in Middletown, where the junior high was, but in Hartford, Connecticut. And I did the audition. They took me to lunch and, treated me very beautifully, like I wasn't used to. And I auditioned, and I won the scholarship. And that meant that I had 4 years of training for singing. At the same time that I was going to high school, I was going to music school. So I'd leave high school, run to the train, get on the train, and off we go to Hartford from Meriden. Well, on one of those trips, a miracle happened, because what do we call them? The gentleman who used to grab my hand and pull me onto the train before it took off. I would just maybe be on time. And he took me one time, he just kept walking with me. He said, "Come with me." And I went in with him, and we went to an elegant parlor car where the most beautiful, elegant gentleman was. And his name was Paul Robeson. And he introduced me to him and him to me and said, "Someday you're going to be proud of this young lady. Who would have dreamed that later I'd be singing with Paul Robeson in New York City, that I'd do concerts with him, and have the honor of being sponsored by him to study in Mexico some years later.
Hope, tell us about the performances with People's Artists.
Well, People's Artists was a number of people who became very well known, like the Weavers became known as the Weavers. But when I was there, they didn't. They were singing together, and I even sang with the group. But I never. But they weren't called the Weavers until after they did this song that became so famous, "Good Night, Irene, Good Night," and other songs that the Weavers did. But at that time, we were performers for causes, street corner singing. I was part of the one with various members of People's Artists who sang in Harlem to try to get Adam Clayton Powell to represent us in Congress. He was a minister in the Black church in Harlem. You'd never know that he was one of us because he didn't look like us. He looked more like a Latino, and a very beautiful man. And we sang for various causes. Paul Robeson would sing on the street corners. I was starting to say Sidney Poitier, but he didn't sing. The guy who, his name won't come to me right now, that's terrible. Okay, it isn't with me right now. But he was a very famous, and stayed famous. Who?
Was it Harry Belafonte?
Belafonte! What took you so long? And we were friends, all of us were friends, and we did various performances together and apart from one another. And we even sang at Madison Square Garden together, and Paul Robeson joined us in various things. He was, I would say, a lead member of People's Artists. And I just had a wonderful experience being a part of people who, through their songs, were able to do work for the good and help to change the world for the better. When I went to the World Youth Festival in Berlin, it was the People's Artists Group that gave a big performance where a lot of people came, and Robeson performed, and so did all the others I mentioned before, to raise the funds to send me to the World Youth Festival in Berlin. And we weren't thinking in those terms, but going to a World Youth Festival about the arts, youth arts festival, was the thing that Washington didn't want us to do. The result was a lot of unpleasantness when we came back. But the great thing about People's Artists is that so many of us made the beautiful impression through our arts to help change things for the better. That's good enough for me.
So, Hope, can you tell me a little bit about your move to Mexico City?
Well, it was a fabulous surprise because I had never eaten a tortilla, and I didn't know what one was. So my friends in New York took me to a Mexican restaurant where I had my first experience seeing what a Mexican looked like. and tasting the food. And I was very happy that I was going to go to Mexico. And then when I did get to Mexico, Albert Maltz, who was already there with his family, arranged for me to have a nice place to live, and introduced me to the people in the arts there, and well, wonderful, wonderful artists that everybody knows about, and we had a special party to introduce me to those people, and it was beautiful and wonderful, and everybody was very receptive. And then there was a play that came to Mexico about the witches of Salem, and that was my first opportunity to do acting on the stage there. And I played Tituba, and this was an Arthur Miller play, and The Witches of Salem was the title. And then from that, everything just kept moving. I moved on into television, and had my own program twice a week, singing anything that appealed to me, and with two wonderful pianists and a bass player, and that went on for many months, and I got fan mail. Really, in the USA at the time, our people, or my people, were not in television, having their own programs. I recall that I don't know why I'm having a blank, but our wonderful African-American singer, whose daughter later did duets with him after he had passed away.
Natalie Cole. Nat King Cole.
Nat King Cole, and that was Natalie, his daughter. Yes, and they couldn't get into television. There was effort. They couldn't get any sponsors. I go to Mexico. The next thing I know, I'm a TV star, and it was lovely. It was a lovely experience, and the government there supports the arts, so I was sent on concert tours in various parts of Mexico. I got to see that I would never have even known existed otherwise, and it was in concert halls. It was in universities and universities or colleges there, and Oaxaca is one of the places. Cuernavaca was one of the places. Guerrero, I'm trying to remember the main state. The city is most famous, so I can't think of it right now. But I had a wonderful, wonderful experience in Mexico as an artist. And I ended up leaving there after 10 wonderful, joyful, active years as an artist, and moved on to Europe because I met a cultural attaché from Switzerland, yes. And he was very interested in what I do and did, and arranged for me to meet people in Switzerland. So that's where I went next. And there I met this elderly lady who took a special interest in me, and she arranged for me to audition at the Opera House for their training. They had an opera studio where I got the opportunity to learn singing in different languages in opera roles, and from there I went on to Israel, where I had I guess I must have sent in an application. Oh, before that, I had auditioned for sponsors, and I got Rockefeller grants, and I had two of those. That's how I studied in Zurich at the Opera House, and then from there, I went on to Israel, where I had sent in an application, and they sent for me to join them, and I did Cherubino in the Marriage of Figaro by Mozart, which was my first contract and my first full role, because up to that time I had been at the opera studio in Zurich. Yeah, but then my first contract was in Israel, and there I did about 3 other roles, and I did Pagliacci. Everybody knows about Pagliacci, and I did Nedda, who was his wife, in that, and in Carmen I did one of the friends of Carmen. But you know what? I was trained to be a soloist, and I had not prepared to sing in a trio or a quartet or anything. So that was a really big trial. I mean, that was hard. But I got through it, and went back to, Porgy and Bess came to Mexico. Change it. Went to Israel, and I met the people there and became interested in it. So when I returned to Europe, I let them know I was there, and I was hired at one of the opera houses to do Bess in Porgy and Bess. So Gershwin and I came together at that point, and from there I did concerts, tours in Germany and Switzerland and Vienna, Austria. So my career just moved along. I had everything that I had never dreamed of, because I didn't know that could happen. And the final picture was I was doing Porgy and Bess in Germany, and as Porgy is leaving the stage, he's being taken away by the police, and I'm reaching out to him, and that was in Sprendingen, that's the name of the town. And I reached out for him. The floor was so slippery that everybody in the show was sliding around, but because I was reaching like that for him and then had to pull back, I went against the wall, against the wall, okay. I went against the wall, crashed, and that was my last scene. It was going to be my last scene, as I ran away with a drug addict who was the bad guy. And instead, I ended up sitting on the floor, rocking back and forth and yelling. And I ended up in the hospital for about 10 days. But the most wonderful thing about it was the treatment. No, I never got a bill for being in the hospital. After I was ready to leave the hospital, I had to be cared for before I could return to Berlin, because Porgy and Bess had left town with the substitute Bess. And I went to live with a lady who was a pianist and a choir director. And the government took care of it, whatever it cost. I had nothing to do with it. And then they put on a benefit for me to performing in that town. And they hired a young man whom I had never met. I didn't know him, but he came and did songs, and I did songs. So there was a benefit for me having been left in that town. And then they paid my way back to Berlin, and from Berlin, I did concert performances here, there, and wherever. So that was my experience in Germany for the most part. I'm trying to remember, did I do, yes, I did concerts in Berlin. Oh, sure. I've even got, I think, something on the wall about that. A Gershwin concert with other artists who were brought in, and I sang Gershwin music. And maybe we will get a picture of that on the wall that I have here. So I've done everything that they allowed me to do and everything that I hope to do. The only thing that got in my way was the fact that I wasn't a coloratura soprano and I couldn't sing La Traviata. I wanted to sing La Traviata, but my voice didn't go up there. I didn't have that training. It could have gone there if I had had the training, but my training was not for that. It was mostly for concert. But I did get to do opera, and I did get to live the life that I was born to do. Because when I was 7 years old, I knew that I wanted to sing. When I was 9 years old, I was performing with all of my friends in the neighborhood, in the cellars and on platforms and anywhere that we could present ourselves. And every Friday night, we used to run up to Main Street. We had this long street, I forget, River Street or something like that, because we lived right by the river. And we ran up to the corner where there was a drugstore, and they had the latest songs that were out for sale. So I'm saying in print, you know. And so we kids was to get these little booklets, bring them home, and we'd all start singing the songs we heard on the radio. So I got lots of practice, getting ready for the future. And here I am. I had my future, but it's not over yet.
So Hope, tell us about Rudy Schroeder.
Rudy Schroeder. I think you pronounce it Schroeder because it has two little dots over the O. That's how they do things in German, you know. Put a couple little dots over, you put a little accent over something, and it changes it. So, or a little U number on top of it. So anyway, when I was in Switzerland, some person in the arts, I don't even know who it was, but he did me a great favor when I told him I don't know why I was going to Berlin anymore, I don't remember, but I was going to go to Berlin, and he gave me Rudy Schroeder's name and a little note to just have somebody there for me who was expecting me and could kind of give me some guidance. So that's what I did. And it was really like a miracle, because Rudy was in the music business. He was an executive in, I think it was a publishing company, music publishing company. And he took an interest right away in my past musical history. And he took me to a party one evening where I met Anna Langenbeck. The two of them made my whole career change, or made a whole career happen, because she was a voice trainer who just happened to be at this party that Rudy took me to, where I met other people, but he was just introducing me to Berlin and the world, the music world. And the result was that I started going to lessons with Anna Langenbeck, and Rudy paid for the first month, because they gave lessons by the month instead of by the lesson. So he paid for the first month. Now he just knew me through this other person. He didn't know me well enough to sponsor me or anything, but he did. And after that, Rudy arranged for me to be heard and seen in different occasions. And before I knew it, I was on my way to other parts of Germany to perform. And I also did a recording that I have a copy of, a sent copy. And Anna Langenbeck trained me under this whole new picture and whole new understanding of vocal training, because I had learned to sing. They use, in America, they say, sing into the mask. This means your face. I didn't know that the body had anything to do with it except for the vocal cords. So you take a breath, you sing through the vocal cords into the mask. With Anna Langenbeck, it was take a breath, push your belly button, and send your breath up your back, up your vertebrae, into your head, and out. It made all the difference in the quality of my voice, because before that I had no power. I just had this little girl's voice coming out of me. And with Anna Langenbeck's work, my voice developed the body, and the body in the voice. So she arranged for me to meet different people, and Rudy arranged for me to meet different people. I began to get opportunities to sing in different places in Germany. I've sung Porgy and Bess, later, of course, not right away, but I've sung Porgy and Bess in various parts of Germany, and I've done solo concerts in different places that he arranged for. So he just opened the doors for me, and all I had to do was produce. And Anna Langenbeck, whom he arranged for me to meet, made that possible by helping me to grow a voice. So it was he, and I have a nice little story to tell. He was we were driving down Kurfürstendamm, is like Main Street anywhere, but big Main Street. It was the Main Street, Kurfürstendamm, and he was driving me somewhere on Kurfürstendamm, and along comes a car with some young guys in it, and they all started yelling at us and so on. And I said, "What's that about?" And he said, "They're all jealous of me. They wish they were in my place, by your side in this car." Oh boy, like, wow. So that's when I knew that he was proud to be my friend, and did everything he could to help me. I think, and my daughter. Belinda at the time was about 12, and we spent a lot of time with Rudy, and he bought her first guitar, and she says to this day that he was like her papa. It was like having him as her papa, and she cried when she found out that he had passed away. She went back to Europe after we had transferred back to America. And she visited him, spent time with him, and so did I. I went back too, and we spent time with him. In the meantime, he got married, he had a son, and he had we have a picture of him surrounded by a family. He was married a couple of times, and both wives loved him enough to be there for him when he was not well. They took care of him. And that's the picture I have of him with his, I think, a son and a granddaughter, and a little family. But Rudy, without Rudy, I wouldn't have had the experiences I had. I don't know how I could have started. He started me in Germany. So that's my story of Rudy, and Langenbeck built the voice, and he opened the doors where I could use it. That's it. Rudy Schroeder was such a blessing in my life in Berlin and in my whole experience in Germany, mainly because of his connections with the music world, but also because he introduced me to Anna Langenbeck and paid for my first 4 lessons, my first month of lessons, and then she took me on from there further. I never had to worry about having money because they believed in whatever my gift was, for which I am totally grateful, that they made my career possible, that I sang in most wonderful places. But the most valuable thing that I came away with is not just the experience of being able to sing and share my gift, but that I came back a teacher, that I taught at the musical Hair when it was in Berlin, and I was assistant to the drama teacher there. I did the same thing at the Conservatory of Music in Berlin, and when I arrived here, I was able to go to the community of LA and teach at the Cultural Affairs. Cultural Affairs had a school where I taught for 4 years, which was mostly people of color in the Los Angeles community. So for that, I am so grateful that I was able to come back with a contribution to make that was really valuable. And I still hear from people who I was teaching at the Inner City Cultural Center. So I have to say, Rudy Schroeder, you were the light that lit up my candle. Candle.